Thank you, Priscilla. So I know
Yeah.
that you are here to discuss about the history of Onicha-Olona and the connection with Ezene Obodoike. So some of us believe that Ezene Obodoike is the same thing as Ezechima. So you are here to distinguish between these two people because Ezechima is a different person according to history now, and Obodoike is a different person as well. And history tells us that Oba Orhogbua, who reigned in the 16th century in the Benin Kingdom, brought Ezene Obodoike to Benin and made him the Iyase of Benin. So go ahead and tell us more about the history.
Yeah. Ezene Obodoike. Who is he? Where is he from? What did he do? As I always say, everything I say is what I heard from my ancestors, what I heard from our elders who heard from the ancestors, what I learned from my father and the elders of our land. And according to the elders of our land in the narrative of our history, Ezene Obodoike was one of the Ezechima, men of Ezechima in the previous time. He was known, just like Ezechima, to also be a medical, traditional medicine man and metaphysicist. He was initially among the camp of Ezechima before he decamped and started helping our warriors of old. As an Igbo man, helping our people during the war against the man he was under was something that is very heroic and brave to have been done. So he was credited with a number of things, not just in Benin, but in Onicha-Olona. He is a man who was credited with the name of one of the rivers in Onicha-Olona today that is called Animodua. If you go to Onicha-Olona today and ask for the Animodua River, they will show it to you. He was also credited with showing our warriors where Eke, the brother of Ezechima, was staying in the bush during the war. Yeah, he did that because he knew where their people were. So he was able to tell our warriors where Eke was. After the war, according to our elders, he started living with our people in Onicha-Olona until the death of Emobai, the son of Iken Nusel, when Oba Orhogbua called him from Olona to Benin and installed him as the new Iyase in Benin. Now, how did this all happen and why did this happen? And first of all, the name was Ezene Obodoike. Our elders also in narrating it usually refer to him as Ezene Obodoike. So it was said that he was not, at a point, he was not happy. He became wearied of the confusion and the problem Ezechima's revolt against the house of Iwere was causing. For that reason, he defected, particularly because of the way the war was affecting their people, the Igbo people, who were now migrating back from Benin, from their previous comfort zone where they had already settled and had a good life before the war started, and then they started migrating back towards the east So our elders said that this was not quite pleasing to him, which is one of the things that triggered him to now abandon Ezechima's camp and then started fighting alongside with our Benin warriors. Because of the information and how useful and helpful he was to our warriors, he became a very good friend to Prince Orhogbua, who would later become Oba Orhogbua. So both of them became good friends, among others. He was both friends to Prince Orhogbua and Orhogbua and Prince Osazua. So, as you may recall, Iken of Uselu went to war in our war.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, when Iken was called back to Benin to go to our war, by the time he was in Onicha-Olona initially, before he was called back to Benin to go to war in our war, and he went to the war in our war. You might also recall that if you go into the history of Benin, there was a time there was no Iyase that was in existence in Benin. I think the last, if I recall the elders' narrative, Oba Orhogbua was the last to have had an Iyase before Oba Iwari, and Oba Orhogbua was served by Iyase, I think Emuse, if I pronounce it well. The way I may not pronounce it the way Benin people pronounce it, but our people, the way our elders pronounce his name is Iyase Emuse. Okay. Now, the emptiness in the Iyase position after Emuse stayed until Iken went to war against our people, in which he died. We remember also that when Iken went to war, Oba Iwari sent his first son, our people called his name Oko Kabiowa or something like that, if I recall that name well. To stay there, reason being that Emopai, the son of Iken, was also in Olona fighting war. So someone has to watch over the house of Iken. When Iken eventually died in the war, his house was honored by calling back a Mopai from Olona to give him the title of the Iyase as a honor in respect to his father's service to the land. Mopai became the next Iyase of Benin, installed by Oba Iwari, but he was not noticeably known to be an Iyase in Benin because he never stayed in Benin. Though installed an Iyase, he never served in Benin. All his time he lived most of his time he lived in Onicha-Olona and the war front. So probably his name may be in the list. If you may check the list of Iyases in Benin, you may find somebody called a Mopai or Mopai. Iken Nuselu. In our side, our elders refer to him as Mopai Iken Nuselu. Okay, so after the war, Mopai remained the Iyase of Benin, but residing in Onicha-Olona until Oba Orhogbua. It was during the time of Oba Orhogbua that he returned to Benin and served till the time of the early reign of Oba Orhogbua. Okay, so after the death of Iyase Mopai, the son of Iken Nuselu, Oba Orhogbua remembered his friend, his Igbo friend, who helped him so much in the war against Ezechima, and then called him to Benin and installed him as the new Iyase under him. That man is his name is, according to our history, his name is Ezene Obodoike or Ezene Obodoike. So, because of his service after his installation,
Sorry.
because of
Friend, you see, this Obodoike is the same thing that a Benin historian wrote in his book. OSB Omorigi also wrote the same thing, that the man that Oba Orhogbua brought to Benin, non-Edo man that became the Iyase of Benin, was called Obodoike.
okay,
So, the same
that is the
name.
same man.
So some of us were mistaking this Obodoike for Ezechima.
No,
So some people
he's
said
not
that
Ezechima.
Ezechima was the Iyase of Benin.
No.
So not Ezechima, but Obodoike. The same thing was recorded in the book written by OSB Omoigi, Benin historian.
Okay. I would like to know about that history you're talking about, but I'm going to narrate based on what our elders said in Olona. But obviously from what you are saying, that man is collaborating what I'm saying now.
Yes, it's the same thing.
Yeah, so after being installed as Iyase by Oba Orhogbua, his Igbo brothers did not like it. One, they have bad blood towards his defection, and then becoming the Iyase of Benin became a small serious problem. If you ask the elders in Benin, they may recall he was ambushed by his Igbo brothers and killed. Okay, so after serving for a few years, while he went, probably he went, wherever he went, he was ambushed and was killed by the remnants of Ezechima's loyalists as of then. So after his death, or around his death, Oba Orhogbua mourned him, and to honor him and remember, keep his memory, he now mandated that the Iyase, the greeting of the Iyases of Benin will no longer be Olo, and change it to Lavieze. Reason being a way to remember that Ezene was from Ezechima's camp, but started serving the Oba of Benin in the capacity as an Iyase. So that is who Ezene is, and that is how he became the Iyase in Benin. I know some of our Benin people may have forgotten that the original greeting of Iyase in Benin was not Lavieze, it was Olo. In Onicha-Olona, most of our Nyama, that greeting is still held by the Iyases in our area. I can speak mostly of Onicha-Olona and Onicha-Olona affiliates like Onichubo and Onichopo, and I hope it's local too, and others. Though we don't say Olo, we say Olo. Sorry, we don't say Olo, we say Ono. But originally in Benin, it was Olo, Iyase Olo, according to our elders. So we retain the greeting of Ono in Onicha-Olona, but Benin changed the greeting of the Iyase to Lavieze to honor Ezene Obodoike. So that is the brief about Ezene. So is he the same person as Ezechima? No, he is not. Ezechima is different from Ezene. Ezene was a member of Ezechima's community. Then, is there another question around him?
So why this narration that Ezechima is the same thing as the Iyase that Oba Orhogbua brought to Benin? So why the discussion? Why the distortion?
Well, that is you know, history can sometimes be very difficult and controversial, and particularly when it's orally narrated and passed down. Sometimes some people will fix in some things and take out some things, perhaps when they are confused or perhaps intentionally. Nevertheless, different people tell history from different perspectives. One can only tell from the perspective he can see. But what I'm saying is that according to our elders, Ezene is not the same person as Ezechima. Ezene Obodoike is different from Ezechima.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
the same thing was written in the book of OSB Omorige. It's exactly your narration. It's the same thing that he wrote.
Okay.
So, because
So
it's
it's
very
not
confusing. It's
you
very
know, one of the things I've noticed, Onicha-Olona haven't been out of picture for many years, for decades now. They lost their voice, their history. Nobody is telling, nobody is hearing. It looks as if Olona went silent. So some of this confusion that I'm seeing in recent times in the history of our people, I believe Olona people would have been in a good position to be correcting them, because in the ancient time before the arrival of the British, the history of our people was mostly held by Olona people in the palace. Okay, but after the Ekumeku War, many things changed. Olona became, if I may use the word, a beheaded lion that had the bones of its carcass lying on the ground that it once pounced on. What I mean by that is, after the Ekumeku War and everything that happened, the betrayals that came from within and from outside, both internal and external betrayal, many things happened. The kingship of Olona disappeared because the royal family, the throne was usurped. And since then, there has not been a king, a true king. I'm not saying that people have not gone around saying that there will be. There are people that have gone with the title of Obi in Olona, but they are not from the royal family. They are not royal bloods. And none of them passed through the process of becoming the Obi of Onicha-Olona. All those that were installed as Obi in Onicha-Olona were installed with the process of installation of an Oniha, which Benin people call Oliha. So, having no sitting true king of Olona, the history of our people remained the family in the royal family. But since there is no king to pilot the affair of the people, they lost their voice. When they lost their voice, it seemed as if they lost their place in the affairs of our people, in the public. And then many stories, revisions of our histories started happening. Our elders knew about all the changes and modifications. But when you are the worst enemy of the people in power, which is the British as then, what are you going to say that is going to fly? Okay. So that was why I believe some of these corrections would have been made long before now, if really Lorna had a true sitting king. My father did his best when he was alive. Most elders and royal fathers in Anioma today, growing up, I saw them. They come visiting my dad, inquiring of the history of our people, and that is how I learned some of these things too. So those he could tell, those that came to consult him on the history of our people, he told them. But when you are not in power, the people that changed so many of our histories, they know what they did. They know they did it intentionally. They know it was not right. But, well, you have to say something that will suit you. But today, I think Onicha-Olona has a voice, and the voice will continue to speak.
What is the difference between Onicha-Olona and Anioma?
Onicha-Olona is part of Anioma.
Oh, okay. So Anioma consists of how many towns and villages?
I may not say exactly, but more than 100 and something.
Oh, it's very big there.
Yeah, Anioma is very big.
Okay.
Anioma comprises of currently 4 major groups: the Aniocha, Oshimili, Eka, and Ndokwa. Then if you go into each of these subgroups, each of these groups, you have some other subgroups in them, like Aniocha has Aniocha North and Aniocha South. We have Oshimili, which is also broken into 2. Eka, I think Eka is 2 as well, 3. Ndokwa, likewise, they have subdivisions of them. And so, but each of these local governments have multiple towns and villages embedded in them.
So
Yeah.
Onicha-Olona is under which of the 4?
Onicha-Olona is under Aniocha North.
Okay.
Originally, when the British divided what we call Anioma now, like I've said in the past, the name wasn't Anioma originally, but when they divided the whole community up, it was initially divided into Aniocha, Ndokwa, Eka, and Oshimili. But later on, I think around 1991, 92, thereabout, they divided it up again into Aniocha North and Aniocha South. Onicha-Olona is currently part of Aniocha North.
So I hope this argument surrounding Ezechima and some of us who have not been able to identify the differences between Obodoike. And this name Obodoike is not even very popular today, honestly. It's not popular on social media. I've seen so many people writing about Ezechima, and it's been associated with the Iyase that Oba Orhogbua brought to Benin. But when you look at your history narration right now and what is also written by OSB Omoyege, it's still the same narration that Obodoike, Ezene Obodoike was the Iyase of Benin that was brought to Benin by Oba Orhogbua. And this tape is not very popular. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
So people may be confusing him with Ezechima because of the closeness of the name. Okay, but they are not the same thing. The commonality of what they have in common is that he was part of Ezechima's people initially, before he defected. So he is from Ezechima's community. He was from Ezechima's community.
Yeah. So that is very important, and thank you so much for highlighting this history for us. Otherwise, the other time I did a program on this Obodoike, and people came be attacking me saying that this is a wrong narration, blah blah blah. People writing many things about Ezechima, but there's no such thing as Ezechima in the history of that Iyase that Oba Orhogbua brought to Benin and made Iyase. There's nothing written about Ezechima. So I was wondering why people always call this Iyase Ezechima. So I think
it's not.
Yeah, I think it's clear enough now from your narration. You have been able to distinguish these 2 different people in the history of Benin and the people of Onicha-Olona, right?
So if anybody is so 2 things again, since I need people to know about Ezene as a person. Ezene Obodoike. One, in Olona, the river in Olona is credited to him because when our people asked him, when they came to the river and people were asking to know where that river emptied into, his response was Anima-Odua, which is another way of saying that they know the tail, literally that they know the tail of the river, which is to say they know where the river ended at. Okay, So that statement, Ani Modua, is what that man Ezene Obodoike made, is what that river is named after. Secondly, another thing somebody needs to know and remember about him is that he was the member of Ezechima's camp who defected, and he also was credited for showing our people where Eke, the brother of Ezechima, was staying inside the bush during the war, okay, which led our people to capturing Eke, the brother of Chima. Thirdly, another thing they should know is that he started living with our people in Onicha-Olona. He became a friend of Oba Orhogbua, Prince Ihogwe, who later became Oba Orhogbua, and Prince Osazuwa, who later became Oba Nisika. While Oba Orhogbua later went to Benin to become the Oba in Benin until the death of Emobai, the son of his Iken Nuselu. It was then that Orhogbua called him from Olona to Benin and made him the Iyase, the Iyase, I mean. And then also when he was ambushed and killed, Orhogbua, in a way to remember him, changed the greeting of the Iyases of Benin to Iyase. That is the key things I think people should take from when you are talking about who is Ezene Obodoike. I believe, according to our people's narrative, he was succeeded by, I think, Iyase Benede. Yeah, if I remember that name very well. I may not pronounce it well like Benin people will pronounce it, but he was succeeded by Iyase Benede. Oba Orhogbua later installed Benede as the new Iyase that succeeded him.
Yeah,
So
Iyase, yeah, you pronounce it well. It's Iyase.
Okay. If you go into the list of the ESLs of Benin, you may find these people that I just mentioned now. One is so as our elders we narrate it that Iyase Emuze served Oba Ohen, and after Oba Ohen, there was no other Iyase until Oko Kabieyowa went to hold brief for Iken in Uselu because his son, Emobai, was in Onicha-Olona, where we call Onicha-Olona, in the east, fighting war. So Iken was fighting war in our war. His son, his only son, Emobai, was fighting war in the east. Okay, so there was nobody to watch over his house. That was why Oko Kabieyowa was sent to Uselu to hold brief, and then I believe Oko Kabieyowa was the one that later became Oba Ezoti. I may be wrong, but that is what I think that our elders were saying. So if you go into the history of Benin, these need to be clarified. I remember that our elders, when they narrated it,
Oba Ezoti was the successor of Oba Ewari.
Okay, the crown prince, as at that time was said to be, which was the first son of Oba Ewari, was said to be Oko Kabieyowa. Probably make research and find out from our Benin elders whether that is the name of Ezoti before he became the Oba.